There are people who feel most alive in the quiet corners of their home, not because they're hiding from the world, but because peace feels more honest than noise. While society praises loudness, movement, and constant interaction, their truth exists in stillness, in reflection, in choosing depth over display. They aren't withdrawing from life, they're living it from the inside out. With a kind of emotional clarity most people never stop long enough to find. And maybe, just maybe, the world has misunderstood them. There is a quiet truth hidden beneath the surface of people who love staying home. A truth the world has often misunderstood. Many assume choosing home means avoiding life, avoiding chaos, avoiding connection. But in reality, for people like this, staying home is not an escape. It is a return. A return to inner peace, to emotional clarity, to the kind of stillness where thoughts become soft, and the nervous system finally exhales. A house may look ordinary from the outside, but for them, it is not just a roof or walls. It is a sanctuary. A place where the mind is not demanded to perform and the heart is not expected to armor itself. Where silence is not awkward, but sacred. Where being alone is not lonely, but aligned with their truest rhythm. People who love staying home have what psychologists call high internal self-presence. Their inner world is not empty, it is rich, vibrant, layered with imagination, memory, curiosity, and meaning, while others may need noise, novelty, or constant external stimulation to feel alive. These individuals feel deeply present within themselves. Their inner universe is a place where ideas bloom quietly, where emotions are processed instead of rushed, and where they can finally hear the soft voice of their own intuition without interruption. Living this way is not about rejecting society, nor is it about fearing interaction. It is about honoring a style of existence where peace matters more than performance, where authenticity matters more than attention, and where being grounded matters more than being visible. In a culture that often glorifies movement, expansion, and speed, choosing stillness can feel rebellious. Yet it is a rebellion rooted in wisdom, not avoidance. When they stay home, they are not hiding from the world. They are choosing themselves. This preference is not a flaw. It is a language, a quiet emotional that says, I thrive where I feel safe. I create where I feel calm. I expand when I am allowed to breathe. And slowly, with time and self-understanding, many of these individuals begin to realize their lifestyle is not a limitation, it's a form of truth. But this realization usually isn't immediate. It comes from a journey, a long internal conversation about identity, belonging, and acceptance. And that journey leads us to the next layer. The moment they begin to understand that their quiet nature isn't something to fix, it's something to finally recognize. There is a moment in every self-aware homebody's life where they realize they're no longer pretending to be someone else. For years, many of them tried to merge into a world that celebrates noise, spontaneity, and constant motion. They accepted invitations they didn't want, stayed out longer than their energy allowed, and forced themselves into environments that drained rather than nourished them. They believed that being social was synonymous with being successful, and that being constantly surrounded by people was proof of being wanted, proof of belonging. But over time, something shifts. The inner resistance grows louder than the external expectations. The exhaustion becomes harder to ignore. And slowly, they begin to notice that after every loud room, they need hours, sometimes days, to recover. Those parties feel overwhelming, not exciting. That conversation full of small talk feels like emotional static. What others call fun often feels like overstimulation. And what others call isolation feels, to them, like alignment. Then comes the awakening, the realization that they do not need noise to feel alive. They do not need validation to feel real. They do not need to collect experiences to prove that they are living. They begin to understand that their quiet does not mean emptiness. Their preference for solitude is not born from fear, it is born from clarity. The home they choose is where they can hear their own thoughts without interruption. It is where their nervous system rests instead of defenses. And in that realization comes a profound truth. Peace is not the absence of life, but the right environment for life to grow. This shift is often accompanied by a gentle reclaiming of identity. They stop apologizing for needing space. They stop forcing themselves to tolerate environments that feel emotionally unsafe. They stop pretending that being everywhere means they won't miss out. Instead, they trust that what is meant for them will never require self-betrayal. And perhaps the most beautiful part of this journey is when they say to themselves, quietly, confidently, I do not need to be seen to exist. I do not need to be loud to matter. I do not need to be everywhere to belong. That realization opens the door to deeper understanding, especially when it comes to the unique emotional and psychological traits shared by those who feel most at home in stillness. People who love staying home often carry a remarkable inner landscape that many never get the chance to see. Their silence is rarely empty, it is full of depth. Their distance is not indifference, it is discernment. While the world may sometimes mislabel them as detached, passive, or uninterested, the truth is that their emotional and cognitive complexity functions differently. They process life from the inside out instead of reacting to constant external input. One of the most defining psychological traits of these individuals is their capacity for introspection. A single moment, a cup of tea, rain tapping on the window, a memory resurfacing, can unfold into deep reflection. They don't just live life, they review it, interpret it, and transform it into meaning. What others overlook, they notice. What others forget, they store as emotional texture. They experience life not only through events, but through thoughts, sensations, and emotional echoes. This hidden richness often fuels creativity. Research suggests that people who spend more time alone tend to score higher in originality, imagination, and problem-solving. Solitude becomes not an absence of stimulation, but a space where creativity can breathe without interruption. Their ideas expand when silence surrounds them, and their inspiration deepens when no one is watching or demanding immediate output. These individuals also tend to possess strong empathy and emotional intelligence. They read between the lines. They notice tone more than volume, intention more than action, and meaning more than words. Their emotional sensitivity may make chaotic environments overwhelming, but in intimate and genuine settings, they become exceptional listeners, patient observers, and intuitive companions. They do not speak to fill silence, they speak when something truly needs to be said. Another powerful trait they possess is the ability to self-companion. They are not afraid of their inner voice. They know how to sit with their thoughts without needing constant distraction. They are not running from loneliness, they have befriended solitude. This allows them to understand themselves with unusual clarity. They know what restores them, what overwhelms them, and what drains or nourishes their emotional energy. This kind of self-awareness becomes the compass guiding their choices. It's not that they reject the world, it's that they choose what feels right, what aligns, and what protects their peace. Their preference for home is not avoidance, it's a decision shaped by inner wisdom. But to understand why this choice matters so deeply, we must look beneath the surface and explore the emotional roots behind the desire to stay home, the reasons that run far deeper than preference or habit. For many people who love staying home, the reasons behind this preference are woven from both psychology and lived experience. Some carry a nervous system that feels the world more intensely than others. Noise isn't just noise, it's intrusion. Crowds aren't just people, they are energetic chaos. Unpredictable interactions require emotional vigilance. And even pleasant conversations can feel like a performance when there is no internal sense of safety. Home offers something the outside world often cannot: control, predictability, softness, and the absence of emotional demand. For others, the desire to stay home is a protective instinct. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom earned through experience. Perhaps they once offered too much of themselves to people who did not value depth. Maybe they loved loudly but were met with indifference. Maybe their boundaries were crossed when they were too young to defend themselves. So now, the home becomes a sacred boundary, a space where no one takes more than what is willingly offered. Where vulnerability is not a risk but a choice. There are also those who simply function better in a curated environment. Their emotions, creativity, and clarity depend on peace. They think more clearly when life slows down. They feel more grounded when they are not overstimulated. Their energy is a finite resource. not a limitless supply, and they protect it carefully. Home is where energy replenishes instead of evaporates. And then, of course, there are people who choose home simply because they love it. Not as a response to the past, not as protection, not as coping, but as preference. They find joy in quiet hobbies, comfort in routine, and fulfillment in simple presence. They do not crave constant engagement because their life does not feel lacking. There is pleasure in brewing tea, in reading alone, in creating something small but meaningful. Their contentment does not come from the external world's offerings, but from the inner world they continuously build and nurture. That's why it's important to understand, staying home isn't always loneliness. And it isn't necessarily avoiding. Often, it is aligned with emotional truth, nervous system balance, and authentic identity. And yet, society often confuses solitude with isolation, stillness with stagnation, quiet with emptiness. The world forgets there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. To truly honor the psychology of people who love staying home, we must explore this distinction, and how solitude can become one of the most powerful states of emotional wholeness. There is a profound difference between loneliness and solitude, though the world often folds them together as if they mean the same thing. Loneliness is a wound. It is the ache of being unseen, unheard, or disconnected even when surrounded by people. It is the silent heaviness that whispers, "I do not belong anywhere." Loneliness can exist in crowded rooms, in busy conversations, in relationships lacking depth. It is the emptiness that emerges when someone's presence is physical, but the connection is absent. It is passive, unwanted, and often painful. Solitude, however, is a choice. It is an act of self-alignment. In solitude, one is not abandoned, one is accompanying by themselves. It is empowering, clarifying, and deeply restorative. Solitude does not ask, "Who is missing?" It asks, "Who am I when no one is watching?" It becomes a place where the mind can breathe, where the body recalibrates, and where emotions finally have room to unfold without interruption or expectation. In solitude, there is no pressure to perform, entertain, or respond. It is a state where authenticity becomes effortless, not something to negotiate. People who love staying home often live inside this space of chosen solitude. They do not fear being alone because loneliness feels like truth, not abandonment. Their inner dialogue becomes clearer, their creativity sharper, and their emotional boundaries more defined. Solitude becomes a form of emotional hygiene, a way to process experiences before they become overwhelming. While others chase distractions to avoid themselves, homebodies return inward, not because they're escaping life, but because they're honoring their emotional rhythm. This distinction also reveals another reality. Not everyone who enjoys staying home is a classic introvert. Some may enjoy socializing, laughing loudly, and connecting deeply, but they still require home as a recharge point, a space where energy can return to balance. The real conversation isn't about personality labels. It's about energy. Where it is lost, and where it is restored, where it feels taken, and where it feels renewed. For those who love staying home, peace is a currency, and time is not something to waste on environments that dim their inner clarity. They live intentionally, even if quietly. The world may glorify constant interaction, but these individuals have learned to honor their threshold, the point where enough is enough and retreat becomes an act of emotional respect. And once this understanding deepens, a new question emerges. If staying home is not about fear or avoidance, then what shapes their connection with others? How do they love, bond, and choose relationships in a world full of noise? When people who love staying home choose to connect with someone, it is never casual, rushed, or based on convenience. Their connections are selective, intentional, and deeply meaningful. They do not build relationships because they fear being alone. They build them because they recognize the rare feeling of emotional safety. While many form bonds quickly, exchanging stories before trust is built, homebodies move slower. They listen, observe, and feel. They do not fall for the surface of a person. They connect with the truth beneath it. Their love style is quiet but powerful. They may not express affection loudly or constantly, But when they do, it carries sincerity. They show love through presence, through attention, through being emotionally attentive. They notice the things left unsaid, the subtle pauses, the tone shifts, the body language that contradicts spoken words. Their empathy allows them to care in ways that feel gentle yet profound grounding. They protect the hearts they let close, because they know the cost of trust and how fragile vulnerability can be. Because their emotional landscape is deep, they do not need many relationships to feel fulfilled. They value quality far more than quantity. A few real, loyal, soul-level connections mean more than dozens of shallow interactions. They are loyal, often to the point of devotion. And when they care fully. They are the kind of people who remember your favorite song, who feel when you're overwhelmed without you saying a word, who give space when needed and presence when it matters. Their boundaries are not walls to keep others out, they are gates protecting their peace. They do not force themselves to be available to everyone, because their emotional energy is not limitless. Instead, they invest in relationships that feel reciprocal, respectful, and nourishing. And because of this, being loved by someone who prefers staying home feels different. It feels safe. It feels slow and intentional. It feels like belonging. They may not always initiate plans. They may decline invitations that don't align with their emotional state. But when they choose to show up, whether emotionally or physically, it means something. Their presence is not automatic, it is a decision, a gift, an expression of trust. And perhaps the most important message for people like this is simple yet often forgotten. There is nothing wrong with the way they exist. Their quiet, their stillness, their desire for space, these are not flaws. They are strengths. You are not behind. You are not missing life. You are living differently, intentionally, softly, and truthfully. Your peace is not laziness. Your solitude is not avoided. Your silence is not emptiness. It is depth. And one day, if and when the right moment and the right person appears, you won't leave home because the world demands it. You will step out because it feels right. And when that day comes, the world outside won't feel overwhelming. It will feel welcoming, because you will be stepping into it without losing yourself.